Hi, everybody. Welcome to Frequency Freaks, and thanks for joining us once again. Today, we have some news about some big changes coming up to the way we're doing things for Frequency Freaks. For a long time, Frequency Freaks has been a one-man show, and it's been pretty easy to organize, especially while it was in person. Just conversations with people over the course of a month would result in interesting presentations for the workshops, and calls for performances resulted in people showing up and being ready and willing to perform. For moving into the future, though, with the pandemic and moving Frequency Freaks online to YouTube, that has resulted in a lot more work for me in terms of pulling everything together. So I reached out to a few people to get some help. And what I'd like to do is bring those people in now. None of them should be strangers to you. So please welcome Scott, Heidi, and Michael, the people who are helping pull things together for Frequency Freaks. Some of you have heard from them already in terms of being asked to do community portraits or performances or what have you. But the way things are working, Scott is going to be continuing doing more community portraits or portraits of our community. Michael is helping with the programming and outreach. One of the things we want to do is bring in performers from other synth communities around the world to share their ideas and their music with us as well. And hopefully that results in some of the members of our community being invited out to perform in some of those communities as well. We've got Heidi with us as well, and Heidi's going to be doing the news. And the news is going to be done with a bit of a twist, and I'll let Heidi talk about that. So Heidi, why don't you unmute and get us started with your thoughts on how we're going to start talking about news.
Well, thank you, Paul, and thanks everyone for having me on board. It's always nice to contribute to Frequency Freaks and to feel included in the organizing layer of this thing. So this news segment, I hope it's obvious that it's not just like general, world news. It's synth-related news and modular-related news. So it started when I guess Mike and I were chatting a little bit about some of the recent gear releases, and so this idea came up to do a news segment. But what I also wanted to bring in, I was like, well, gear news is nice, but there's tons of resources already online where everyone can check out what's out there and what's being released. But I thought, because I'm kind of a history nerd as well, I thought that it might be nice to use the news segment, looking forward to what's coming out, but also then to look back at maybe the lineage of this new piece of gear and what came before, in terms of either a specific synthesis technique, like a recent, wavetable synth or a recent granular sampler, and then use that new piece of gear to open up a discussion on a bit of history and fun facts and things like that. So that's the idea for the segment, and I'm working on the first one, and it should be fun, and I hope people will enjoy it.
Cool. And thanks for participating, Heidi. It's fantastic to have you on board. We've known each other for a few years, and it's been, we've had the opportunity to perform together too, and that's been a lot of fun as well. So it's really nice to have you on board. Michael, do you want to start talking a little bit about the kind of outreach things that you have planned?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So, few of those things are in motion already, and well, at the beginning, it's really just reaching out to more people in the community that have contributed to our live workshops, as well as posted and engaged with us on Facebook and on Discord. Um, and just encouraging them to submit performance videos and to submit, you know, basically anything that I might be talking to them about. Sometimes people will message me based on a post I made or something, and I'll say, that would make for very interesting conversation in one of our workshops. Why don't you do a quick 5 or 10 minute video on it? You know, and with some reminding and just some motivating of just saying, I think this would be really great. Just gentle sort of prods to make it happen. We can get a lot more diverse content, a lot more quantity, as well as diversity in the number of people submitting things. So that's from the community aspect. But then there's the broader outreach of coming up with themes for future workshops, and then bringing in people from out of town into our live streams or out of Canada into our live streams that can give a more global perspective, because a big part of what 2020 did, I think, for the world and for the synth community in particular, is just remove the borders. So while the four of us are Canadian, and most of the people in Frequency Freaks are Canadian because we used to be a live synth collective, meeting in person. Now it's a global village, to use a term by a Canadian. But yeah, so it's breaking down the borders. It's bringing in other people and new ideas, and just at the same time trying to honor our community and encourage people to come in here and express themselves in an environment that is encouraging and safe. Where if you want constructive criticism, we have a collective 2,000 years of synth experience among us, I think, if you add it all up.
Maybe with the whole community we have that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, well, probably with just the Canadian Electronic Ensemble, there's at least 1,000 years of experience there. But so if you want that, it's there. Or if you just want to submit things and just try your hand at something, then that's great too. And we'll applaud you just for coming out, basically. I mean, because it does take, especially those first couple performances, I know from experience, my first live electronic performance was done at Frequency Freaks. And once you get the first one or two off your chest, then it's a lot easier to submit things. But it's that first step into the pool, right, that takes encouraging, and that I think is what I want to make my principal role in this group, is just outreach and encouragement.
Cool. It's interesting that you mentioned first-time performances, because for me, that's been one of the fantastic things about hosting Frequency Freaks for the past, I think it's been 5 years now. The number of people who have started either in modular synths or with hardware synths in general, who have never done music before, never done a live performance before, and have chosen to do that first live performance at Frequency Freaks. I think it speaks a lot to the community that we have. And, it's an extremely diverse, in terms of genres, in terms of styles of music as well. We have everything from very experimental through to four on the floor techno EDM style stuff. We've even had jazz done on synths and modular. So that's you know,
that was fun.
It was really cool. It was actually really cool to see that whole thing kind of develop and progress as well. So I want to bring Scott into the conversation as well. So Scott came to me a while back saying, hey, I have this idea. And his idea was portraits of our community. And I said, sure, go ahead, do it. which I'm not sure he quite expected. But man, you've done a good job of it so far. The first one that we did at the last workshop, I think, was very well received by everybody. That was with Les Hartai. So it's a really cool thing because it allows us to get to know each other that little bit better. I mean, we get to see each other in person at the Frequency Freaks events when we hold them in person, but unless you actually delve into some of the questions that Scott delves into in these Portraits of a Community segments, then you don't actually get to know the person maybe as well as you think you did. Or through these portraits, you learn some things that you didn't know about those people as well. So, from what I've seen so far, Scott, you've been a fantastic host and interviewer, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more. Do you want to talk a little bit about your plans for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think pretty much as you said, the genesis of the effort of the segment was really to sort of fill in a little bit of the talk gap that might be missing from our current online forum, right? And in as much as while I think we're obviously really looking forward to getting together and seeing each other again in person very soon, the reality of the situation is that could still be a while away. So while the online events that you put together, Paul, were just awesome. I mean, we're wall to wall amazing. Perhaps the one thing that's a bit different than getting together in person is that we don't kind of get a chance to chat with each other. I've spoken with a number of people who really value the opportunity to get to know the other members of the community, a little bit more in basic ways. Find out a little bit more about their backgrounds and their preferences, their taste in music, their approach to their creativity and to their art. So that was really the thinking. Plus, the other thing I realized was that we had a really awesome opportunity, which is very different than the face-to-face get-togethers, in which to see people in their home studio environments, in their creative spaces. So we get to see, in our get-togethers, we bring a small chunk of gear, but obviously the practicalities dictate that we don't bring everything. But here we kind of get to see people, I guess in what they might consider to be their optimal configuration of equipment. And that oftentimes, leads to some really interesting conversations that, wouldn't necessarily occur to us to have, when we're together with that sort of miniature traveling rig, or even if somebody isn't performing, even more. Like some of the segments that we've got coming up, and sort of involve a very brief studio tour, and it's great to see what people have chosen, what equipment, what tools they've chosen to put in place, and also the impact of those tools on their creative approach. So by talking to them a little bit about their backgrounds and their interests, their influences, this kind of thing, in the midst of their studio, and say, hey, I see that thing behind you. What's that all about? I think it just gives us the opportunity to really get to know the members of our community a lot better. And it also, as I said, gives us a little bit more, perhaps of that face-to-face, social interaction that's missing at this time.
Yeah, I can tell you, it has certainly been different for me working with a group with you guys, working with a group of people to help put this thing together. I feel like I've had a big load taken off my shoulders with you guys coming on board and helping out, and I really, really appreciate that. It's made it interesting too, because there's been this influx of ideas that I probably wouldn't have come up with on my own, and I think those are important as well. Going forward, I think we're going to be pretty open to new ideas coming from everybody, not just from the four of us. Sure. There is a contact form on the website for people to go to and make suggestions or leave commentary. You can do that in the comments of the videos. We read all those. You can reach out to us on Discord or on Facebook in the Frequency Freaks groups there, or the Frequency Freaks the Frequency Freaks group on Facebook and the Frequency Freaks server on Discord. Different names for things on different platforms.
And Discord is way better than Facebook. I mean, Facebook's fine, but Discord's awesome. So if you're not on our Discord server, then just ask any of us, or just post in the Facebook group and we'll give you the link, because Discord is just an awesome way to communicate with any of us. Post your thoughts. We have a number of a big variety of channels within Discord that are topic focused, but then we also have a separate topic that deals with non-synth things. Obviously we want to focus on synth related topics, but if you've got something interesting, particularly tech or communications related, like I've been posting, or I think they're interesting anyway, maybe other people don't, but I posted in the life category and the non-synth channel, and so I think we can have more interesting simultaneous discussions in there than we can on Facebook, where one person posts and then if another person posts, it obscures the last one, and so then you can really only be talking about one thing at one time, and you have to worry about Zuckerberg reading all of it.
Yeah, I think for me, my day job being in information security, being away from Facebook for a lot of those conversations is helpful. I don't know how many of you have had the experience of talking to somebody in person, and the next time you check something on your phone, you get hit with ads about that thing that you've never spoken about online before. Yeah. And you just all mysteriously get these ads. So the more I think we can get away from that kind of stuff and increase our privacy, the better. I
had that after a doctor visit once, where I never put it in text. I never wrote it down, texted it. It's never been digitally transcribed in any way. It was a conversation between my doctor and I saw an ad on Facebook for something related to it. And it was I'd only spoken about that thing once, so I knew that it wasn't listening to multiple conversations. Like, it was one conversation.
Yeah.
Well, certainly, I think God forbid that I should suggest that the pandemic actually might have some benefit or result in some positive outcome. But here, for the next while, we have an opportunity to really change up the dynamic in our community. And I think, per your point, Michael, sort of, and yours as well, Paul, about inviting ideas in and new approaches, this is, I think it's a real opportunity to engage with each other in a new and quite honestly, deeper way. And I think, God forbid, this should be the new normal. But certainly while we're at it, we're a creative community. And I think, opening up the Frequency Freaks forum to sort of a variety of different content and a different approach, Paul. I mean, I think, first thing, we're also appreciative of the work that you've done over the years to bring everybody together and to foster a sense of community. I think to speak for, pretty much everybody when we say it's a joy to be able to come forward and to assist you with this. We realize it is a much heavier burden, but we're creative people, so we can respond to this situation, I think, in a creative way. And I think, when we look back upon this in a few months' time, we'll probably say, yeah, we did some really cool stuff in our community while we were all locked away.
Yeah, and we didn't take isolation lying down.
Exactly.
We capitalized on it. Turned a problem into an opportunity.
We're at home.
Yeah.
Cool, Heidi. You've been really quiet.
Oh,
I know you.
no, I'm
I
just
know you. I
listening,
know you
and
don't like to waste words because we all have a limited number of words in our life to use. So,
yeah, I mean, I think personally, I I sometimes get a bit overwhelmed by different platforms. So, but I understand that at this time, it's just what everyone needs. It's just where everyone goes to engage with each other. And yeah, and I think I'm quite new to Discord, and one of the things I was just thinking about as Michael was talking about Discord is that it's nice to because I think a lot of other local community groups are also on it as well. So it's actually really easy to link up. I know, like we were already linking up with the Colorado,
yep.
modular
Yeah.
community,
Yeah.
Yep.
and in the past year, I've also been contacted by like the New York Modular Society or folks that are doing their own modular series and things like that. And I do think we were talking about this before this panel about how like virtualizing these local meetups have delocalized and expanded what the boundaries of the community, and that's a really good thing to kind of
So
being able to
just along those lines, I think it was Michael. Was it you, or did I get it from Discord from the Colorado synth guys? There was last weekend. There was a big performance thing put on by the Southern California Modular Society, and
Yeah, that was wicked.
it was fantastic. There was some really good music in there.
Yeah.
And some really interesting studio setups and creative uses of lighting and even some video thrown into the mix. So I think we can all learn from that kind of thing and use our creativity to make even our performance videos be a little bit more than just the standard, cell phone pointing down over my rig as I play kind of thing, which is always interesting because we like to see what people do.
Yeah.
And
if that's all you got, that's great. But
yeah,
if you feel like branching out, go for it, right? That's the time.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing what everybody is going to do going forward. Like you said, the standard top down kind of view, it's fine. If you want to add to it, put some blinky lights in the picture or some little LED lights. I know some people have been working on LED light projects and stuff like that. Just add those into the mix as well. Everybody likes blinky lights. And creative video processing as well, if you have the tools and the ability to do that, or if you want to learn about it. There are people within the community who have some experience with that kind of stuff. Just reach out and ask the questions. We're all a friendly bunch.
Yeah, I think it's useful to think of this place sort of like a synth / technology incubator, where if you want to learn about something, the community is broad and diverse enough, and it's full of just so many smart people who are just so excellent in their fields that chances are, if there's something you want to learn about, just make a post here and there will be somebody that can help you with that. Like I know a priority for me eventually, I've got a lot of stuff on my plate in the next year or two, but after that would be really diving into Surge. And when I think about Surge, I can think of one name at least right away, and then there's probably even more that just sending a message to you, Paul, or anybody else saying you could tell me 3 or 4 other people that I could message, and that's the beauty of a community. And like Scott said, I want to thank you, Paul, for birthing that and for maintaining it for so long, on your own, basically. And I know that transition to virtual for you must have been super difficult. I mean, you told me it was, and really happy that we can be here to help you from here on.
Oh man, it was a learning curve.
Yeah.
Well, one that you climbed pretty quickly, I would say.
Yeah. When I think back to our first live stream that we did, and all the issues that were associated with that, like all the audio ended up being in mono when I didn't realize it, and the video quality as you're streaming is only in 720p, and all kinds of stuff like that. It was it was a little embarrassing, and so I jumped on that learning curve pretty quick.
Well, I have to tell you, it was pretty impressive, because I don't think you even missed a month, right? I think we were online.
We missed 1 month.
There was no March. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there was no March workshop.
Ah.
Right, and then
that was because we were all rushing out to the grocery store to bring home enough food that we could last,
toilet paper
for the 2 months that we were going to be locked in, right? So
yeah, I was trying to buy wet wipes that month.
Yeah,
and toilet paper.
And toilet paper. Oh yeah, I ordered toilet paper from Amazon, and it came from, I think, the UK or something. It was like a weird brand I had never heard of, but it was the only toilet paper available, and it took like.
But was it amazing?
No. It was like 2-ply and a little rough.
Okay.
But better than nothing at a difficult time for toilet paper.
Yeah. All right. So now that this conversation is kind of headed to the toilet, it might be about time to wrap it up. So just in closing, I'm really looking forward to how we gel together as a team, and the stuff that we're going to produce going into the future. I hope everybody else is as well. Just to everybody who's out there, feel free to reach out to us if you have ideas, suggestions, criticism, commentary, whatever it is. You can leave it in the comments below on YouTube. You can reach out to us through the website. You can reach out to us on Facebook and Discord. If you join us on Discord, it becomes really easy to hop over to the Colorado Modular folks and see what's going on there. They are a very active bunch over on Discord, and they're always doing things. So with that, I think we'll close off. Thanks, guys, for joining me for this, and I'm looking forward to everything we do together in the future.
Yeah,
thanks for having me.
I have 5 patches that I'm going to share with you today. But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about this quad peak animation system. Now, what that means is that there is a pair of filter cutoffs for the left and right channel, and this amounts to 4 potential peaks that can be arranged. It's helpful when thinking about QPAS not to consider it so much of a filter, but more of a kind of sound sculpting tool. And based on its design, it's really intended to explore stereoscopic sound. Now, because it's a pingable filter, I actually find that I need to be quite careful about how high I turn the resonance. Anything really above 11 o'clock, and it starts to get into this almost kind of spacey, atmospheric, and zappy quality, which I have to say, for the record, I am not a fan of. On the other hand, with 5 possible inputs that can be pinged, it offers a lot of opportunity for some really interesting kind of polyrhythmic, multi-peak pinging. I want to encourage you to put on your headphones. So to begin, I'm going to play just a simple filter sweep using a sawtooth wave. I'll then bring in a second channel. And then I'll bring in the 4 peaks. But where QPAS gets really crazy is when you start to modulate all of those different left-right radiate controls and push it to its stereo brink. Okay, so in this first patch that I'm going to show you, I've got a single voice sequence that is using QPAS as a kind of end-of-chain sound sculpting tool. Now, the voice initially goes through a low-pass filter and then eventually into a mimeophone delay and then into QPAS. And in this case, I'm using QPAS really to kind of add some extra space to what is already a pretty dynamic and changing sound. One of the things that really stood out for me in that patch was actually some pretty powerful feedback, creating a kind of almost brassy sound, which I really quite like and enjoy. So in the next patch, I just wanted to highlight that little bit of feedback and demonstrate to you how that sounds on its own. Okay, so for our second patch, I really want to take advantage of some of the more pingable qualities of QPAS. So here I'm using Euclidean circles. It's spitting out 5 different rhythmic patterns, but sharing the same master clock. Now, all 5 of those gates from Euclidean circles are creating some pinging, and in their combination, creating some pretty interesting polyrhythms. In a moment, I'm going to cut to a later part in the patch in which I actually bring in a 6th part of Euclidean circles, and I use it to begin triggering some of mimeophone's reverse delay feature, which creates this really nice kind of slippery, zooming sound to it. got some rhythmic thinking out of the way, I want to get into some pure ambience. So in this next patch, we're hearing a string section, and it has this beautiful kind of ethereal orchestral quality to it. And then at the very end of the signal path, I have QPAS doing its beautiful stereo sound sculpting magic. What would a stereo filter be without a good, honest nod to noise, band pass, and cold Canadian winter? So for this final patch, I am pulling out one of my favorite tricks. Here I'm using two voices and putting them through a shifty and creating a hocket, which means that the notes are alternating between the two voices. Now I've created a single sequence coming out of Renee that's only 15 steps long, and that odd number means that each of the two voices alternating doesn't repeat the same note for quite a few cycles. Now, this hocket scenario actually is quite fun with a stereo filter because I'm able to put one voice into the left channel and another voice into the right channel. And then, as a source of modulation, I'm actually using 5 channels of the tempi. So here, I'm taking different rhythmic gates, all following the same master clock, and using them to control the filter cutoffs, both centrally as well as peripherally on the radiate controls. And what this does is it creates a really wild stereo rhythm bouncing situation between the voices in each ear as well as the clocked rhythm as modulation source. You end up with something that really kind of bangs around in your head. With that, I hope you enjoy. Thanks so much for following along today, and I look forward to patching with you in person sometime soon.
So yeah, welcome to another Frequency Freaks Portraits of Our Community. Today I'm talking with Sunil Solanki, How you doing, Sunil?
Great. How are you doing, Scott?
I'm doing well,
Nice to see
thanks.
you.
Doing well. COVID treating you okay?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Not too bad. Had a bit of a lockdown for a while, but back to work and just trying to survive, you know?
Oh, fantastic. Good stuff. Yeah, it's all about looking forward, right? It's a challenging time. So I'm glad to hear you're doing okay. So listen, thanks very much for agreeing to meet up with me today. These discussions are really just to get to know, the different members of our community, to introduce ourselves maybe to people who haven't, met you before. Also, just an opportunity perhaps for some people who have met you to get to know you a little bit better. So yeah. So listen. So how did you come to sort of electronic music and in general and say modular specifically?
That's a bit of a long and winding path, I suppose. I got into electronic music probably when I was in grade 9 or grade 10.
Mm-hmm.
I was really, really big into Depeche Mode, and then from there got into Gary Newman and Kraftwerk especially, and those three were probably the really big foundations. That would have been the late 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, late 80s and early 90s, and started then. After a trip to Thailand, I bought a pirated version of Propeller Head's Reason and Rebirth
Mm-hmm.
software, and it was basically Rebirth was the very first software instrument I ever used, and it was basically two 303s, an 808, and a 909 in software form,
Mm-hmm.
and it just blew me away. And I was like, wow, this is the sound of so many of the records I love and so much of the music I love. And after that, I started saving money for about 2 years. And I remember buying my very first synthesizer. It was a Yamaha SY22 Vector Synthesis
Yep.
from Cosmo Music.
Yep.
And
Cosmo. I remember that. Yep.
$1,400.
Yes.
And then I had a floppy disk Brother PDC 100 sequencer, which was my very first sequencer. And
Nice.
sequenced the entire Depeche Mode 101 album on that synth, and
Wow.
I played along with it on VHS while I would have all the
Nice.
multi-track along and
Nice.
stuff.
Nice.
That's how I learned how to play. That's how I learned how to play by ear, and I just listened to it and played along. And fast forward from software, I started collecting more and more hardware over the years, and then about maybe 5 to 7 years ago, I heard about this meetup here in Toronto called Tom's, Toronto Modular Synth Workshop, and that was run by Brock out of Tui Gress, the modular case manufacturer.
Okay.
And wonderful guys, and I got to meet Paul and Craig Renault and a bunch of different people way back then, Dustin Good, Jacob Waters, all the old crew.
Mm-hmm.
And Dustin suckered me into Moog Audio, and I got my first case, and it's been a slippery slope since. And now you see all that's behind me here.
Yeah, that's a sweet rig you've got going on behind you there. That's for sure. So nice. So about how long have you been in with modular stuff now? Working with modular.
Probably the last 5 years.
So it's been 5 years. Yeah. Okay.
It's been about 5 years, I would say. But definitely, I use a lot of fixed architecture synths and semi-modular stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
And my latest passion over the last year or so is I've really gotten back very much into sampling. I picked up a Casio FZ1, which sounds phenomenal. Yeah. I've got 2 loop packs. I've got a bunch of sampling modules now, and so I've been doing a lot more of that kind of stuff lately.
That's fantastic. And if I remember correctly, you have an album. You've just released an album. Is that right?
I did. Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that. Yeah, it's out on Bandcamp. Just came out, I think, yesterday actually. And it's really an homage to, because I'm from England originally. Mm-hmm. And we moved to Canada when I was 8 or 9 years old, and then I would go back to England every second summer. I would stay the entire summer at my uncle's house.
Nice.
And then I went to England for university. So I spent about 8 or 10 years of my life in England. sorry, not 10 years, about 15 or 16 years of my life in England, actually. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I was there during Aphex Twins early, like when Selective Ambient Works
Nice.
came out, when Orbital Insights came out, when FSOL ISDN album came out, and I was in the record shop every single week,
Sure.
picking up new things. Just that's all where all my savings would go, is on in record shops.
Right.
Um,
So yeah, you were there. You were there at a pretty hot time.
yeah, and
That must
so
have
at
had
that time, I discovered drum and bass, big beat, and sort of, amen break, jungle, and all that kind of stuff. And so this new EP, it's called Underground Stories. It's very much a tribute to Future Sound of London, to the
Nice.
Crystal Method, to LTJ Bookham and Easy Rollers, and all that kind of stuff. A lot of samples, the typical movie samples that were used in that sort of era, lo-fi, amen break type stuff, mostly done on Digitact, on the TB303, SH101, the Pro 2, all those sorts of sounds. So yeah, it's on.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And what's your Bandcamp handle?
Android Dreams Music on Bandcamp.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Well, just I want everybody to be able to find it, right? So that's excellent. Well, congratulations. That's quite an accomplishment, especially at this time, right? It's hard for a lot of people to get motivated to pull stuff together. So it's I think it's doubly impressive that you've got that happening, during the COVID.
I feel like I feel like there's so much music coming out in these last 10 months. I think people are hyper focused because there's nothing else to do. There's nowhere to go. You can't meet up with friends and family and things, and all you can do is get your emotion out musically. And so for a lot of people I've spoken to, this has been a very, very creative period for so many people. There's been so much music released, so much music streamed over the last months, and so for a lot of introverts, this has been not a bad time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that from some artists, actually, especially with the Serb, they talk about, making a more steady income, which allows them to focus more on their art. So I think that's fantastic. So listen, apropos of that, you obviously, having done the recording, that part of it's clear that that's something that you do as part of your creative process. But how do you, divide your time up? I mean, given that we all have jobs, and it's hard to, you've got a super sweet rig behind you, a lot of equipment, a lot of stuff to learn and experiment with. Do you have a specific approach? Like, do you contribute a certain amount of your time towards learning, practicing, a certain amount to recording? Do you have a structure to your approach?
It varies. I mean, I probably watch an unhealthy amount of YouTube music gear, and I think I'm sort of maybe guilty, like a lot of us, of spending more time on gear sluts and modular grid, planning and fantasizing about buying gear, and if only I had this piece of gear, then everything would be right. And always wanting to change things and move things, and it's a very slippery slope to fall down. And it's hard when you've got a full-time job. I've got 2 children. You got family responsibilities, home responsibilities. You can't just be involved in music at all times. But it's certainly a vital part of stress relief and stress reduction, and just getting tension out of the body, and getting your creativity down. Very often, one of the things that I think sparks me the most is very often when I'm listening to other people's music, it's almost like I'm remixing it in my head. And I'm thinking, okay, I would change that bass line, and I would put a melody line here. And sometimes I'll hum a melody into my phone so then I can go back to it later. But almost always I'll start with a sound that's inspired me, and then it just leads me into different directions. I'm not classically trained in any way. I can't read music or anything, so sort of just everything is by ear and by feel, really.
And do you tend to bring sort of a consistent approach when you sit down to work on something, or do you just basically let let this, as you mentioned, let the sound speak to you and kind of see where it goes from there?
I think it's almost, I think the nice thing about having a lot of variety of equipment is I almost view them as separate systems in a way. So if I wanted to make some acid and things, I'll have the the TB3 and the TR8 going, and maybe the SH01. And whereas if I want to do something very experimental and ambient, maybe I'll go for the modular. I find the Electron Digitact has been an absolute game changer for me. It's probably the most musical piece of gear I've ever used. In fact, I bought two because I wanted to have 16 tracks rather than just the 8. And its sequencer is fantastic. Its sound is fantastic. The ease of use is it's incredible. But I feel like it's almost too easy.
Yeah.
I could literally do everything in my studio, and if I just had the Digitacts, I'd still be able to churn out so much music.
Your desert island units.
Very much so. Very much so. But
and do the two Digitacts, like, together, do they have like an overflow mode that allows you to sort of double the...
See them right there.
Yep.
There. So they're just MIDI'd up together. I don't use overhub at all.
Okay. Yeah.
So I typically try to use one for drums and leads, and then the second one for sort of spoken word samples and sort of effects. So then one is sort of playing patterns, and then one I'm live triggering, or something like that. I pretty much try to use my mixer to create my song. So I'll have a whole bunch of different instruments all playing at the same time, all with their sequence patterns that I've programmed, and then I create the song in the mixer. So I'm using the faders live in real time to bring out solos and mutes and bringing effects in and out and things like that. Advantages and disadvantages of that. It's an ongoing discussion with myself and Paul Stillwell about multi-tracking, which is starting to win me over as to the reason why I should be multi-tracking things.
Right.
Because if you make a mistake when you've just got a stereo, that's too bad.
The whole thing is, the whole thing's impacted.
But that's the way I've been working for so many years, and I just find it's the most fluid way for me to craft a song.
Sure. And it's a bit of a, I've noticed that it's a bit of a live performance. Artists who like to perform live, I think, tend to treat the mixer as a performance instrument in and of itself, right? And you have enough if you have enough channels on your mixer, in theory, you can have an entire set, kind of running in the background and just bring up the faders and, mute and unmute tracks as you need to. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the performance mixer. I think it really has a fantastic place. But I do also agree with what you had said, right? Multi-tracking, or basically mixing in the DAW, certainly does give you the ability to reuse anything, down the road, especially if you make, as you said, a flub or just something that you take a direction you don't quite like with a particular track. So that's cool. So listen. So what are you currently listening to? What music is currently on your playlist?
Lately, what have I been listening to? I've been listening to a lot of IMX. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them at all.
I've heard,
Chris Corner, he was the front man for the Sneaker Pimps. And then he went to his own project called IMX. I've been listening to a lot of sort of 90s drum and bass type stuff. And what else have I been listening to? Always listening to Aphex Twin. The older stuff, more so than the new glitchy stuff, is more melodic stuff. And always listening to my old favorite Depeche Mode for sure.
Right. So stick with the roots.
Yeah. So much good music coming out from so many small producers, people that you discover on Instagram. There's a great sort of industrial EBM guy I love listening to. T3LSS, his name is on Instagram, and he uses mostly sort of noise engineering modules and Erica synth modules, and just fantastic. But so many people that are just putting out some fantastic music that are just flying under the radar, and Bandcamp has been wonderful for discovering so many
Yeah, it's
people.
got so much fantastic content. You can just kind of let it auto pick the tracks for you all day. I oftentimes put it on the background while I'm at work, and I'm oh my gosh, what's that? And I just hit heart on it, right? Hit like on it, and away you go. So yeah, Bandcamp's is a real blessing. So tell me then, apropos of obviously of our community here, what do you look for from Frequency Freaks? Like, what attracts you to the Frequency Freaks community?
The greatest part about it is that word, community. It's an absolute sense of family and friendship, and it's so wonderful to be in a room with people who just get you and
Yes.
understand your passion and your
Yeah.
motivation and just how important this little world is to
Yes.
us.
Yes.
And to be able to talk whether it's with someone who's an absolute beginner and enthusiastic and doesn't as asking so many questions, and you remember when you were just like that as well, and helping bring them in and help explain things to them and teach them, or someone who's been in it for their entire lives and getting into really, really high concept technical details.
Hmm.
It's all there, and to be able to perform and then talk about your performance, or to listen to incredible varieties of performances from people, and then
Hmm.
actually have them explain to you and be able right there and then with the creator to say, oh my God, that bass line, 1/3 of the way in, what did you use? And literally you can walk right up to his rig and he'll
Yeah,
show you
that's right.
exactly what he did to get that sound. So that teaching aspect, that learning aspect, the the enthusiasm, it's a wonderful thing that has been built, and it's a real shame that we're all not able to get together and speak with one another and play for one another, and just that sense of community. It's one thing to do it on Zoom, and it's wonderful that we can still at least see each other and speak to one another. But that real human contact it's wonderful. Yeah.
It's a big difference, that's for sure. That's for sure. So, and I guess, do you think that you sort of, obviously we're talking about the community. Do you think that there's a community sound or a Toronto scene that's kind of
There's
emerged from this?
definitely a scene. I think there's a scene that's grown. I mean,
Mhm.
modular synthesis and just synths in general. I mean, we're living in an absolute golden era of
Golden age.
availability, from the highest of high end to the cheapest of cheap. And not to get into a Behringer discussion in any way, but whatever your budget is, whether it's free VSTs or even relatively inexpensive hardware synths, whatever type of music you want to make, it's all available. The amount of free education that's available online is incredible. But is there a Toronto sound? I would definitely say, um, because I've seen now so many performers play so many times,
Mhm.
I'll know what Steve Castellano may sound like. I'll know what Paul Stillwell may sound like. I know what Jeremy Sykes may sound like, and what you may sound like, because I've seen you before. And so it's something. The variety is incredible, from dark ambient and very experimental to four on the floor techno to everything in between.
Mhm.
Uh, and the nice thing is everyone's very open-minded.
Mhm.
When you go to a performance, when you go to a gathering, you have no idea what you're going to hear, but it's going to be good. And even if it's someone, the nice thing is also to see someone who performs for their very, very first time. That's happened quite a few times over the years. People who, they've come in, they started asking questions, they bought their first synth, and we've sort of, slowly encouraged them, and to see them be able to perform and have the confidence to perform for the first time, it's a wonderful thing,
It really
you
is.
know.
Yeah, very
Uh,
much so.
but yeah, I mean, Toronto's got a really, really, really great musical scene,
Mhm.
and yeah, just want to get back to live music.
For sure, for sure. So listen, obviously, I really appreciate you taking the time today. I'm wondering if maybe we could just ask you to do one more thing. It might be a bit experimental. We can see if it works. But you've obviously got such a sweet rig behind you. So I just thought maybe on your way out, you might just pan around and just sort of point out some of your favorite instruments and a little bit about your rig. Nothing too serious, just a quick overview.
Sure. Let's just see if we can do this with the camera here. Maybe it works best if I just turn it around 1 second here.
Sure.
Okay. There we go. Okay. So this is I guess the heart of it all. This is the Mackie 1640i Onyx mixer, and few little pedals. I've got the Otto Biscuit, which is a killer bit crusher.
Nice.
Eventide space and time factor there. A wonderful little MIDI breakout box from Roland from back in the day.
Yeah.
Here the dual Digitax and the TR8S.
Mm-hmm.
Below that is the TB3. And then this is the newest acquisition actually to the studio. Is sort of a little hard to see it, but it's the Novation AFX station.
Nice.
Up here we have a DX21, and then the absolute pride is the Oberheim SEM Pro.
Nice.
With Mr. Tom Oberheim's signature. Right.
Excellent.
If you can see it.
Excellent. Yeah, that's awesome.
It's pretty nuts to actually play on a synth that Tom Oberheim himself touched and built, and
yes.
This is the Pro 2 from Dave Smith, which is an absolute bass monster. I love it. The sequencer on it is fantastic. This is my System 8, which you may have seen at the Roland Inspiration Center. I'm not sure how many. This is sort of a customized case they built for display. And I got this from the lovely Doug Romanoff. And basically, it holds 2 racks of modular gear. So I've got my Roland modules through here. And so I'm not sure how many of these there are in the world, but it's a wonderful piece.
Good score, man. That's a nice score.
Yeah. And then moving over to the modular side of things, this is usually this is my performance case. This actually, the drum mixer from America Synths, this just arrived last month, so I'm just learning how to use that. This is a fantastic little sampler from Ginkgo Synthes, and just all the modules I've got going on here. I'm really got too many sequencers. I've got the sequencer 1. I've got the drum sequencer. I've got the dope for 1, and then I've even got, which just came out of the case, and I've got no space for it. I've got the Eloquencer as well.
Nice, excellent. The Eloquencer, sweet.
So more than a few.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, listen, thanks very much. I really appreciate the tour. That's fantastic. And I guess just as we go, I gather you've got a performance for us today. So thanks very much for that. Really looking forward to hearing that.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's a bit of an acid track I just threw up yesterday. Put it together. It's pretty much mostly done on the TR8S, the TB3, a little bit of System 8, Pro 2. And Eurorack. So actually quite a few things actually went into that one.
Fair enough. Okay, great. Well, listen, thanks so much for your time today. It's been great seeing you, and I really appreciate hearing about your background and everything. Obviously, the studio tour is awesome, and obviously really looking forward to seeing you again face to face very soon.
Likewise.
Okay, take care. Have a great day.
Take care, Scott. Nice seeing you.
Hey gang, this is Yoni. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a rundown of some of the weirder aspects of the rig that you just saw me and Claire use there. The basics of it is actually the drums and the sampler instrument were software things coming out of Ableton. So that was all sequenced out of a push too, which you saw me kind of doing all the, drum modulation on the snare and all that earlier stuff. And then you saw me kind of go over to here. So this is my Eurorack case, but what I have is a whole bunch of custom MIDI controllers here, faders, knobs. This is mostly levels and sends of things, and so some of it is actually software instrument or software sort of effects plugins control. Let me just give you a quick example of that. So this would be like a fader for one of the channels. This happens to be a Yamaha sort of chiptune emulator plugin. It's called OPL. I highly recommend it if you guys are into something like the Acme's Tyco or the ALM stuff. They do a lot with that. But anyway, okay, so I got that going through here, and I can send to my delay, for example. It's like a memory man kind of effect. You'll see here I have the different, for the left and right channel, delay times. I got some feedback here, right? And some filtering here. So we were using that a lot. Anyway, yeah, if I want to actually change the timbre, what I have is this massive knob here. I can assign this knob to any of these parameters. So on that plugin, I can do like the carrier ratio. Now this knob is modulating the carrier ratio. Now I can record that. Check this out. I just press record there. You see that? So that was just that knob wiggle that I did there. I can now assign this to something else, like the mod level, right? Anyway, lots of fun there. Now, one of the weird things you saw me use was this. This panel is a MIDI controller for something called Permutate, which is a very, very old plugin by Sonic Charge. I think this is back from like, early Propellerhead days. It's a bit crushing kind of delay effect, and it's really cool. So if I'll send this over, you'll see what it sounds like. Here I got a clock counter here. I can have this quantized to the session BPM. Here's some feedback. Now I can also have it unquantized. And these switches each turn bits on and off. Now, since these switches are actually sending MIDI note information out, I can also use this as an incoming MIDI device to trigger a sampler, which I was doing. But anyway, so that's pretty much what we were doing there. And finally, Claire was playing this beautiful Minilog XD. I'll get into that next time. That's a whole other kettle of fish. It's got some really great tricks up its sleeve, but maybe I'll do something on that another time. Anyway, miss you guys, love you lots, hope everyone's doing well, and yeah, have a good workshop. Bye.